Last month, 7:30 raised questions about the controversial National School Chaplaincy program. Our story included claims that some chaplains are overstepping the mark into counselling that they're not qualified to do. Some are also pushing their religious beliefs. Today, an official report is criticising the Federal Education Department's management and oversight of the program. It accuses the department of failing to clearly define what chaplains can and can't do, and it says complaints aren't taken seriously. Natasha Johnson reports.
There is a degree of uncertainty in the community. There are many organisations who are rather nervous about what's happening in the schools.
Chaplaincy is welcomed in school communities. They are making a wonderful contribution to the welfare of our kids, and schools are saying that in droves.
The life-changing impact that you can have as a chaplain.
5 years after it was established by the former coalition government and then extended by Labor, faith in the National School Chaplaincy program is being tested. Last month, 7:30 highlighted a number of concerns, including the case of 9-year-old Darwin boy Aidan Cross.
They just said you'd be seeing a counsellor at school for your anger management. He was talking to me about my anger and ways I could cope with it.
His mother, Kathy Cross, thought Aidan was seeing a trained counsellor to deal with problems at school. But after 5 months, she discovered he was seeing a chaplain who had no relevant qualifications. The case was referred to the Northern Territory Ombudsman, who found it was a serious breach of federal government guidelines, which state school chaplains can't provide services they're not qualified for, like counselling or psychological assessment. The Territory Ombudsman's investigation into complaints at 5 schools triggered a probe by her Commonwealth counterpart into the overall management and oversight of the National Chaplaincy program by the Federal Department of Education, and it's received a bad report.
We think that the department can do better in making sure it's properly accountable, that parents are involved in it, and it delivers what it promises to do. And there are some questions at the moment.
By 2014, more than 3,500 schools are expected to have received federal funding for a school chaplain, costing more than $430 million. While the Ombudsman did not investigate individual complaints, he received submissions similar to those aired on 7:30 about chaplains straying into counselling in spite of department guidelines. Former chaplain Beau Walker told 7:30 how he found himself in situations he wasn't trained for.
I would be asked from the school to maybe go and speak to a child who had a relative pass away. The guidelines say no counselling, but what else can you do in that situation?
I think it is important that a lot of the boundary lines be clarified. The qualifications of chaplains in the first place aren't really spelled out, and we think that should be. The role, what they can do and can't do, should be spelled out in plain language.
We believe that chaplains are very well trained and equipped to know the difference between pastoral care and counselling. They work in partnership with the caring professionals in the school environment.
But the Australian Psychological Association, which has previously complained about chaplains overstepping the mark, remains unconvinced.
It's possible that this will help the process and clarify the roles, but I don't think it can reduce that risk of somebody crossing the boundaries and doing what's outside their area of competence and expertise.
85% of chaplains come from Christian organisations like Scripture Union Queensland, headed by Tim Mander, who is also the spokesman for chaplaincy providers nationally.
Chaplains know how to work in the appropriate context within the parameters of the guidelines.
The Ombudsman found poorly defined guidelines have also triggered complaints of chaplains proselytising or pushing their religious views.
There's a well-known prohibition about proselytising, but it's a bit unclear what that means and what you do about it. and there's a need for a clearer distinction between the sorts of support services that chaplains provide and then some of the religious education experiences which schools also provide but are different in character.
There is a misunderstanding among some sectors about the role of chaplains. They are not involved with religious education. They are involved with pastoral care. It is a separate and distinct function.
While acknowledging there's a high level of community support for school chaplains, the Ombudsman found the department failed to ensure schools properly consulted parents. The department reported it had received 277 complaints, but the Ombudsman suspected more were falling through the cracks of an inadequate complaints process.
We'd be looking for a genuine recognition by the department that complaints are actually something to be encouraged and not something to be trivialised.
Our experience is that we receive very few complaints at all about the chaplaincy service. It's overwhelmingly positive.
Among 8 recommendations, the Ombudsman is calling for the introduction of mandatory minimum qualifications for school chaplains that are nationally consistent, and he's given the department 6 months to sort out the problems. Federal Education Minister Peter Garrett declined 730's request for an interview, but in a statement he welcomed the report and said it would be considered as part of a review of the program that's currently underway. The question is whether it's enough to silence the critics.
Natasha Johnson reporting.